Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob, and this video is going to be about my experiences playing Spearhead for the first time at the Warhammer World Open event. I'm joined by the Twitch chat here, and this is hopefully going to be a really informative video about my thoughts and feelings about Spearhead, having played one game of it. So it's not the most in-depth review, but it's the most in-depth review you can get at the moment outside of someone who works for Games Workshop or who gets free product from Games Workshop. So when and where did I play it? Warhammer World was open this weekend for a ticketed event, which is kind of odd because then they didn't really advertise that ticketed event particularly well. Either way, there was a ticketed event which I turned up to with my friend Oscar, who's from Peru, where they have 300 types of potato. He loves Skaven. He was wearing his Skaven t-shirt and he was super excited. We went to Warhammer World. We got there at 11 o'clock thinking, oh, you know what? I'm not sure if we'll be able to even see anything. We turned up and there was no queue. There was no one waiting, and then it was 11, and we were able to sign up to get some match play games and some Spearhead game intros at 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock. So later. So I was like, do you know what? That's okay. Like, we've got a few hours to kill. We'll actually look around the Age of Sigmar launch event. So we went upstairs. So we signed up, got our names. The staff was super nice. We went upstairs. We got our names. We went into the main hall, and the main hall was divided into two. There was a big kind of like netted curtain thing that was dividing where the games were happening in secret, no photos or videos allowed, and then the other part of the hall. The other part of the hall, though, had like three things going on. There was two display cabinets where you could see the new box minis from the launch box, Skaventide. You had the Stormcast versus Skaven that had been done by some team in two glass cabinets. They were in darkly lit, dim parts of the room where, and I'll upload some pictures so you can see, the Stormcast specifically had the backs of the minis all, as you looked at the glass cabinet, the backs of the minis were all there. And I was like, this is really terrible presentation. And they were dark and you couldn't really see them. Apart from that, in the hall to do, there was also a paint table where you could sit down and learn to paint. The two types of minis that you could paint were a Stormcast Eternal, one of the older ones, the guys with the spears, not new ones, and also a Space Marine, and not a Skaven. So that was disappointing, and I'm going to say sad. Then the other third of the hall was made up with just a few tables where people could play like Kill Team of 40k on the Age of Sigmar launch day. And that was the entire event experience. You could also pay like 30 quid if you wanted to go and learn how to paint some Skaven in another part. But I thought, to be honest, based on the experience of like the main hall, I wasn't super excited about paying £30 for any of it. Anyway, so then I had some coffees, I had some lovely chats with some good friends, we bombed around a bit, and then we just went home until 6 o'clock, where we then went back to Warhammer World, because I live really close. So I went back to Warhammer World, we played Age of Sigmar 4th edition first. We had an intro game from, if you've watched my Old World Open Day video, I had an intro game from Ewan. And if anyone's ever been to Warhammer World, one of the most upbeat and exciting and fun people who you could ever have an experience with is Ewan, and we got to have that experience again, which is fun. Me and Oscar got to battle against each other. Obviously, he had the Skaven. I played with the Stormcast. Best bit about this experience, apart from Ewan, of course, was the fact that you got to pick up all the minis. So I got to pick up all of the new models, and they were super fun. And they look better in person than the pictures, to be honest. Maybe a whole other video for another time, but they looked much better. The Reclusians looked very cool, and I had a good time. The armies were already preset. One thing I should shout out is that you're playing on the Spearhead boards, and then around the side of the boards were these like pre-printed large kind of like A3, slightly larger, longer cards where all of the individual unit cards, the special rules for the armies and everything, and even some cheat sheets were all laid out. And honestly, that was really classy. And considering I've been to a lot of Warhammer World events in the past, and they're generally pretty bad, this was actually pretty fun. And clearly someone in some department had made some genuine efforts to present the thing well. I was quite impressed. So I was like, this is pretty cool. And so that was a really nice feature. You don't get to deploy your models. You just play for one turn. You just throw the models at each other. There are no battle tactics. There were no objectives. It was just, here's Age of Sigmar 4th edition, and there you go. I was able to pick up a few tidbits from the game about like what musicians do and some other little bits, which I'm going to make in a separate video in a kind of like what we've learned about 4th edition so far. So there we go. That bit's done. We played. Nothing really happened. Apart from most exciting part was, I mean, because it's the Spearhead board. I should point out that when you move a unit of prosecutors 12 inches and they charge 3d6, they can just go anywhere on the board, and they just went anywhere on the board. Right? So I just immediately one-shotted his Jezzails. He then decided to shoot his big rattling cannon, the new one from the box, at me, overcharged it, and then it blew itself up. So we had a pretty scathing experience from our first game. But would I say it felt like a proper match play game of Age of Sigmar? No. Was it still fun because I got to roll some dice with my friend, and also Ewan was there? Of course. That made it better. So then we went to Spearhead, which we got to play immediately after. You're allotted 45 minutes to an hour to play Spearhead. So we went in, and same situation. There was a Spearhead board, which is two-sided, if you don't know, with the objectives that are pre-printed on them. Each of the objectives has got like a special character or symbol on them. So if it's like, go to Objective Draconis, you're like, oh, it's that one there, which is fun. We met up. We had the 7 o'clock slot, which was the very last slot of the day. I forget the person who introduced us and played our game, but he was very, very tired, and I said, I completely understand that you must be exhausted. You've been doing this for 8 hours. Bless your little heart. We were playing Slaves to Darkness versus Gloomspite Gitz, Oscar, and there was like a person who's never played Age of Sigmar before, so we put him on Oscar's team, and then we just proceeded to play. If you don't know how you play Spearhead, it's 2 starter boxes against each other, and I got to say, that's the first thing I want to say about this. 2 starter boxes against each other should be the pitch. It should not be, I would like to play a game over a lunch break. It should be, you and your friend can go into a store, buy a starter box each, and battle against each other. The pitch from Games Workshop has been, this is a game you play over lunch. I don't really understand that. I'm not going to play that over lunch. I'm going to eat my lunch. I'm going to have a relaxed, nice evening or weekend playing some games in a fun space or a comfortable environment. I don't want to cram in on a tube and play a game. It's just very weird. Anyway, it's a weird pitch, but 2 boxes playing against each other, amazing pitch, which I really enjoyed. Okay, so we battled against each other, and I had all of the armies were already deployed. All of our battle tactics and traits, or not battle tactics, but our traits were pre-selected for us. So really all you do is you just roll off to see who goes first. Again, those card printouts were all there, and you could just read through them. Oscar went first, so he was able to move all of his models onto all the objectives. Okay. And then I went second, and then the way you score is you hold those objectives, which are the little printed pieces on the card. That's a 2-sided piece of card. So Realm of Fire and Realm of Life. This gives you replayability. Yeah, it's a classic Oscar move. Grabbed all the objectives, moved his goblins on, set his trolls up. Set his trolls up for a counter charge once I decided to charge them. And that's probably my number one negative, is the board is very small. Games Workshop have been touting Spearhead and Age of Sigmar 4th edition, and I guess a real question we need to ask ourselves, and maybe a longer video that we do in the future, is do you want to play a war game, like a game that's trying to simulate a battle or a war, or do you want to play a game that kind of has soldiers and cool factions that you want to battle against each other? This felt a lot more like a board game, or kind of an advanced board game and a card game, than it really felt like a war game, especially with the reduced number of special abilities and rules that you found on war cards. You didn't really get any, they had a special piece of equipment. Is there a rule for that? Not really, no. So it just felt like a very quick and dynamic set of, interactions, although they weren't actually that quick. But the board was small. And therefore, when I have units that move 10 inches and can charge 2d6, the average is 17 inches, and you start about 12 inches away from each other. So you pretty much, even your slower units, like my Warriors of Chaos, were able to move 5 inches and charge 2d6, and I spiked a big charge, and I was basically on the other side of the board. And therefore, there's not that much dynamic board play, especially when the objectives are really where you're charging. I've said this about main Age of Sigmar as well. You never have to go to the other side of the board. You just have to go to where the objectives are. That's the point of the game. So Oscar had taken all the objectives, and the 3 cards that I drew, so the way it works is you hold objectives, which I've just explained, and then there are 3 cards that you draw from a deck of cards, and these are pretty cool. This is my favourite bit about the whole thing. You've got 2 halves. You've got the battle tactic you're trying to achieve, which will gain you some points, like holding an objective. And if you don't want to do the battle tactic, you want to burn it, you can use it for a special ability, which is pretty fun. Okay? So the bit at the bottom was quite fun. I had one where I was never going to get the objective because Oscar had loads of models on it. But instead what I could do is I could ignore rend from an enemy unit like once per turn. So I chose one of my units of knights so that the trolls, when they decided to charge into me, couldn't actually hit me, which was pretty fun. Well, they could hit me, but they couldn't use the rend. And that was actually pretty cool. It was a nice little feature. And I could really see that if you drew good cards, being able to use those abilities, offset against scoring points, could be really engaging. And you could actually have a really fun, engaging game. And I think you could probably play it at quite a high level, which I think is good. So I think that's excellent. But the 3 cards I drew, I was able to score none of them. So Oscar had taken the first turn, grabbed all the objectives. Then I decided to charge him with all of my units, pretty much all of my units, but I wasn't obviously able to kill any of his units because you don't have tons and tons of attacks, and therefore I was then just not scoring any points when the priority roll, and because I had to burn my cards, I won the priority roll, but that would have meant I had the double. Being able to have the double, I wouldn't be able to draw any more cards to score more points. Therefore, gave the turn away, which meant he just scored more points. There's an underdog mechanic where you draw a card at the beginning of each battle round for a cheeky twist, and then we did the cheeky twist. It wasn't really that impactful. It was like one unit can't take ward saves. Then Oscar had his turn, scored a load more points, and then didn't really kill much of my stuff, to be fair. And then in the next turn, I drew more cards, and I was not able really to score many of those either. So now I just felt like, okay, what do I do? Used a couple of like the abilities on the cards versus trying to score them to try and push the game more in my way. Was able to finally clear an objective and score at least a point. And then that was the end of the game. Me and Oscar are tournament wargamers. I play fast. I know the rules well. I can learn things quick. It wasn't so much of a challenge for me to pick up what it was. I wouldn't say learning or even have anything explained to me took more than about 5 to 10 minutes. But in an hour, we were only able to get 2 turns done. And I think you can have a really great casual game or tournament game from the Spearhead system. I think the idea that you and your friend can get 2 boxes, play a game together and learn some stuff is really valuable and really great for the community and excellent, but I don't think you're ever going to play it in your lunch break. Or if you're playing in your lunch break, it's going to feel more like work more than it's going to feel like a fun time. And I think that's kind of the next bit to talk about is, I've been saying this a lot, and I said this a lot yesterday, if you've ever seen that diagram of the plane with the bullet holes in it, and then they armored up those places versus they armored up the other places. This feels very much like that. The concept that I would like to play a game of Age of Sigmar on my lunch is a weird pitch that feels directly geared from the people who have to play it on their lunch because they work at Games Workshop in the rules department versus your lived experience of your wargamer at a local club, your dad or mum or whoever who only has a couple of hours in an evening, or someone who can only get half an afternoon at the weekend. Which is what I think is it feels like survivorship bias is what it feels like, right? And it's confirmation bias. I feel like they themselves live that experience, and so that's what they think is the pitch. But I don't think it's a terrible pitch. I think it's actually a great thing. I saw myself looking around being like, you know what? I could see myself picking up another Spearhead, playing a couple of games. Does it have repeat effect? I don't know about that either. The other thing to say is, rules load. One of the things that I would expect also from, insert fast format but casual game system, you pretty much have to know all of the core Age of Sigmar rules and your army rules, plus the twist deck, plus also the battle tactics cards to be able to play the game. That's not a small rules load in your head to play, to be honest. That's still quite a lot of information to try to be managing on a tabletop, especially in 45 minutes to an hour. If you are someone who's more casual, it's still not as much as, the old world, let's say. But it's still enough that I think the concept that it's streamlined is probably fair, but it's not a small amount of information. It's still quite a lot of information. So that would be my other piece of feedback as well, because if you are a casual person, you then are going to take longer. So I don't think you're ever playing that game in an hour, ever. Or if you are, you're just grinding it out. You're just like bam, 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 bam. And at that point, why am I rushing? What is the purpose? Why am I there? I don't really understand. I would like, even in the most simple book, do I really want to play in 45 minutes and just get it done? Surely the point is to enjoy the experience, not grind it out. And again, that feels very much like a confirmation bias of the rules writers who have to grind it out versus us on the other side of that who can just enjoy the experience. So that was my takeaway. Me and Oscar walked away from that and we said two things. One, we think that the board was too small. Number two, we had a great time. Playing war games is always really fun. I really enjoyed playing war games. You enjoy playing miniatures games. I enjoyed the units. They were cool. And the fact is, because I know Age of Sigmar well enough, I probably could pick up any of those spearheads and play them to a competent degree over an hour and a half to 2 hour game. And that's pretty fun as well. Do I think that you could run tournaments doing it? Absolutely. To a high skill level? Probably. Do I think it hits quite a lot of notes? Fast-ish to play, pretty low mental load-ish for a war game. So I think generally massive positives about Spearhead, to be honest. I think it's a really nice next step for people, and it's going to be a good format for certain types of people to play. I hope those people can find people to play with. But the board was small, but we had fun. That was our takeaway. I'm not sure what else I can say about it. Like, I think I would like to play it more. I'd like to try it more. I think it was fun to teach new people. We had a new person playing Age of Sigmar with us who never played before. I think they had an okay time, but there was so much information they weren't understanding. We didn't explain engagement ranges. There was so much stuff that you couldn't explain in 45 minutes to an hour. That's actually a lot of the pre-baked core Age of Sigmar rules that we brought with us. Like I said, we brought them with us. We knew how to play. We were not getting done. The person who was running our game laughed and said, I've never got past a second turn today teaching people how to play this game. And we nearly got to the third turn. He never got past the first turn teaching people in an hour. And I think maybe that was a bit of like sneaky marketing from them. Everyone was like, yeah, I played Spearhead for an hour. And you're like, no, you played Spearhead for an hour, but you didn't complete it in an hour. And I think that's the other thing as well. So those are my thoughts. I think I'm really pro the Spearhead concept. I think it's good that Games Workshop are trying to make it so that I pick up a box, you pick up a box, you play against each other. Is it balanced? I played 2 turns of one game. I have no idea. I've played with 2 armies. Is it enjoyable? It's enjoyable as any war game because war games are fun to play, especially with your friends. Was it evocative of a war? Not really. That would be the major thing for me. I really think that that's the bit that I personally think was missing for me. I didn't feel like I was doing a battle in a battlefield. I felt like I was playing a board game. But some people are going to love that, and I think that's wonderful. Those are my Spearhead thoughts. Let me know what you think about this video, and if you've got any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'm going to answer every single one of them. Thanks very much. And thank you to everyone on the Wargamer Patreon. Join our Patreon. It's the best place to be. We've got faction chats talking about Age of Sigmar. Thanks very much. Bye.